Hello, my friends. Well, it's Friday again. Time flies, and swiftly fly the days. And one day follows another, and one morning you wake up and then says a week has gone by or month has gone by. This is Dr. Rodrigo Rodriguez, and I broadcast to you every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Truth Be Told Radio Network. And also, you can listen this broadcast again every Saturday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But if by any reason you miss part of it or you want to re-listen it, all you have to do is search on Spotify, search for Truth Be Told Radio Network, and there you will find this broadcast. Not only this broadcast, but you're going to have a ton of information, 120 hours of broadcasts like this, where you can listen to a lot of things that concern you, because every time I talk, I have you in my mind. I'm thinking of you as the primary interest of my professional life. If I can help you, if I can guide you in any way, if I can inspire you to do healthy choices, then I have done my work. Because I am a doctor that hates to see sick people. I love to see healthy people. I love to see people that fight for their health and that fight for their well-being and that fight for very productive, enjoyable, long life. Long life is about it. It's just about being healthy. It's about enjoying everything you love to do and everyone you love. If you cannot achieve that, then you're not helping yourself, and we are not doing our job. So, I'm going to talk today about a subject that I don't address very frequently, but it's heartbreaking, it's very important, and in many cases it can be just as bad as a terminal disease. And this is primarily because it can affect young people. You know, when someone my age, you listen that this person died, and then you say, oh, I'm sorry to hear it. And how old was he? How old was she? And somebody tells you 85 or something. You say, well, they live their lives. Okay? I have always said, if I turn 80, well, be my guest. God will decide when I have to go. But when you're in the middle of your life, and when you're beginning your life, and you have an illness that's going to shorten your life, or it's going to shorten the scope of your life, that's very sad. Because you're either having a lot of plans, you're just developing your life, or, which to me in many cases is worse, you have people to take care of. You're the head of the family, you're the mother of the family, you care for everybody that's at home, you care for their well-being, for their good nutrition, for their upbringing, for their education, you name it. And one day, you just can't do it. You cannot do it anymore, and for whatever reason that happens, that's going to completely put upside down your whole existence, and worse, the existence of your children, who are probably the most precious things to you. And then you say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be here for my son's graduation, or for my daughter's wedding, or for anything like that. I'm going to miss a lot. I'm missing a lot. And that really breaks my heart. It really breaks my heart when I see a young couple with children, and one of them is with a terrible disease, and you try to do your best, but nevertheless, the whole equilibrium, the whole happiness, the whole flow of that family has been ruined. And I'm not only talking, when I say family, I'm not just talking about the immediate people involved, husband and wife and children. I'm talking about the parents of those people. I mean, they're the grandparents of those children. I'm talking about the teachers at school where those children attend, their classmates, your co-workers. It upsets the lives of so many people where anything like this happens that it really breaks my heart. Now, of course, degenerative disease with terrible consequences like cancer can affect us at any point in time, and we have referred to it repeatedly, and we have talked about it repeatedly of what can we do, what can BioCare can do for me, what the doctors can do for me. We have discussed many of those possibilities, and again, I would ask you to go to Truth Be Told Radio Network and listen to a lot of these segments, because we have to be prepared. We have to know what to do. Most importantly, we have to know how we can prevent it. And if we are ever attacked, how can we make it milder and easier to support? But in the last few years, I have had a front seat to it, because the same way I talk about the things I have seen as a doctor in my 50 years of professional life, I can tell you that one of the things that really changed a lot of things, the way I saw them, and moved me to do a lot of the things I do, is watching at people very young in their lives, and by very young I might say in their 20s or 30s, people that are growing up, that are developing their professional lives, that are beginning to do well. We all know somebody like that. We already have a son, a nephew, an in-law that comes one evening or one Sunday home and says very proudly, "I have been promoted." We all know people like that. I have been promoted. I'm moving up on the professional scale. I'm going to be general director of this. I'm going to have a huge contract with the government, with this huge company. And I'm going to be doing very well. I'm actually buying a new house. I might move my family somewhere else, etc. We all have lived through it. And it's fantastic. It's fantastic when you're at home and all of a sudden you have this family member that comes with a broad, big smile and tells you, "Let me invite you to dinner because I have very good news." And then you say, "Okay, sure, what happened?" And then they tell you, "Oh, remember that I did that scholarship and I followed that training in this and that and the other? And yeah, I remember the years I had to go to England because I wanted to study this branch of robotics or this branch of medical research, whatever." And you say, "Sure, I remember that." Well, I came back to work, I continued to work, but I have been promoted. Now I'm going to be the coordinator, I'm going to be the head of this division, and very soon I might have to move to New York or to Chicago because the headquarters of the company want me there. And of course, that comes with a big raise, that comes with a lot of perks, and you can see it in their face. It is completely priceless when you see those young people with those expressions. But that is the beautiful, the fantastic part that we all have lived with. Now, I'm going to tell you something I have lived with on the other side. Well, this person that was beginning to do very well, that had a lot of work, that was pushing herself to do this, to do that, and traveling around the world, and had a meeting in Singapore, and next week she has to be in Vienna, and it's not coming to your birthday because has a big meeting in New York City, something like that. Well, one day you discover that that person doesn't feel like going to work anymore. In their 20s, in their 30s. Very young people that one day get up and say, I can hardly move. I feel so tired. I'm foggy. I'm very sleepy. Yet, every time I try to sleep, I just cannot get to concile my sleep. I don't know what to do. And I have bills to pay. I have a family to support. I have a family to take care of. I have my children that I have to get through school, etc. And I just cannot work. It's not lazy. It's not I'm tired. It's just my body does not respond. And some of these people, I have seen them crying because they understand the impact that this is going to have in their lives, yet there's nothing they can do. Their bodies, they do not respond. They try to press on the gas, and that engine of their body doesn't respond to that demand. We cannot function anymore. We're tired. And the same way we're losing all that energy and that drive we used to have, now having nothing, we begin to lose whatever we have achieved. We don't have any more money. We start losing our car. Many people lose their homes. And the things start to get from bad to worse. That's what some people call chronic fatigue syndrome. And I want you to be with me because I have very important things to tell you about it. My dear friends, we are having this broadcast, I hope you find it interesting, and I hope you don't share with these stories that I'm telling you about a problem that we didn't know about some years ago. When I was in medical school, nobody talked about it. I never heard of it. When I came out of medical school and I started my formal medical training, and I went to large hospitals or medical centers because I was doing my internship, my residence, my everything, attending medical meetings, etc. Nobody ever mentioned about it. It didn't exist. We're talking about fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, any way you want to call it. And the different names are because we don't know, we still don't know exactly what it is. And in many cases, doctors were puzzled. They didn't know what happened. All they knew is they had a 30-year-old, 35-year-old 28-year-old, very productive, very knowledgeable, well-educated, good job individual, very enthusiastic, very everything, that all of a sudden couldn't go to work or didn't want to work because he claimed that he was tired, he claimed that couldn't sleep, he claimed that had aches and pains all over the body as if they were going to get the flu, that they claimed they were not hungry, they had a lot of digestive problems, they were gassy, bloated, etc. And everything they ate was bad for them. And because doctors couldn't find any reason, of course, doctors, and I'm talking doctors, professional people, jumped at the conclusion that these people were having a mental situation, a mental idea. They were probably fatigued because of a lot of work. They were probably fatigued because too much of stress. They were fatigued because they had too many deadlines, because they travel a lot, you name it. But they didn't identify this as a real health important condition. And I'm talking back in the 70s or 80s. I'm thinking about it, and I remember it, for example, being in New York City and talking to other doctors, and because I saw these type of cases, because I treated these type of cases long before anybody did, I had conversations when they told me, come on, these people are tired. Yeah, you get tired. If you're going to run 100 meters in a sprint, you're going to end up sweating and tired. And probably next day you're going to be achy and you're going to feel tired. That's logical. But these people had not done anything physical that could justify the tiredness, the lack of energy, much less the digestive problems, the lack of sleep, the fogginess, and the lack of interest. That's one of the things that caught me in the beginning. If these people are so well educated, they are well positioned in their activities, why all of a sudden do not want to do anything? And I remember when patients came to me almost crying, I say, I went to this doctor, and everybody tells me it's all in my mind. What I need is a vacation. I need a break. Oh, take a good vacation, go somewhere, take a cruise, anything like that. Go to the beach and take a week off, and you're going to feel a lot better. Or in many cases, oh, I'm going to give you this pill for this, for that, for the other. And then we started using, we used to use for a very long time in medicine what we call hypnotics, which is medicine that helps us to sleep. Everybody remembers the Valium, for example. That's the typical hypnotic, something you take because you want to go to sleep, because you want to concile sleep, etc. Which is one of the reasons, and one of the reasons is because people all of a sudden were having more and more problems going to sleep. And we will talk about that one day, because once again, it is not an accident. It's the consequence of a lot of things we're doing wrong. But okay, let's separate that for a second, and let's continue with this conversation. And then, with all these symptoms, all doctors told them is, you need a vacation, it's in your head, and I'm going to give you something to sleep. And then we saw the appearance of a new type of medication that we never used before. When I was in medical school, it was never used. I never even heard the word. But now we started using the antidepressants. They started convincing us that depression was, and that's going to be the subject of a whole program any of these days. They convinced us that we were depressed because something in our brain didn't work. Some mechanism was failing. And instead of trying to go back and finding out what we're doing wrong, what is producing this, because obviously it's a new phenomenon. Because doctors didn't talk about it before. The only way you could talk about depression was in psychiatry. And those people were genuinely ill. They had a brain problem. But no, we were seeing depression in just regular people. So we started using all these pills. Of course, to no avail, because we were not helping anybody. And when I started looking at patients, and when they came to BioCare, and I started talking to them and reviewing them and seeing them and talking to them, I knew something was wrong. First of all, let me tell you something that I truly believe. When somebody tells you a symptom, when somebody tells you he has a problem, your first line of duty is you have to believe this person. You cannot say that's in your head. No, that's not in your head. And if it's in your head, I have to find out why. Because my job, my duty is to help you. And if I can find out why, I might be able to solve the problem. If I'm all too ready to give you a prescription, probably I will not get rid of the problem, but I will get rid of the nuisance that you represent. So no, I want to talk to you. I want to continue talking to you. I want you to tell me when, how. So between you and me, and you are going to help me. That's the other part that we have been missing in medicine. Your participation, your activity, your feedback. We have to sit down and try to see, okay, we probably together we're going to be able to find out. I almost missed telling you that one of the names that fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome have had in the past was the Dupy syndrome. Why the Dupy? Because we're talking about young professional people going up in their careers. Those are the typical patients with all these symptoms. That's why they started calling the Dupy flu, the Dupy syndrome, because this is the type of population that got affected by it. And then we started getting into it, and very, very soon, back in the 80s, we found out that many of these people had an active infection with a very sneaky virus. That's the Epstein-Barr virus. Many of you probably have heard of it. And that if we could reduce this Epstein-Barr virus in the body, a lot of these symptoms started to improve. But it was not only the Epstein-Barr virus, it was some fungal microbes, and like Candida and other things that we started to find out that they were becoming very active in the body. We all have them. Epstein-Barr virus, if you check it on people, you have it in in probably 80% of the population. Actually, when you kiss somebody, you can transfer it because it is in the saliva, among other things. And candida, we have it too. We have fungi on our skin, we have fungi in our system, and we have viruses that live with us. But there's always a balance between how much bacterial or microbial activity we have in the body versus how much immunity we have in our body. We have an equilibrium. And yes, I know I have candida. Yes, I know I have Epstein-Barr. Yes, I know that I have mononucleosis viruses in my body. They're very similar, Epstein-Barr and monoviruses. I know I have them, but I know I have a system that keeps them at bay and uses them for certain purposes, but they can only go so far. But what happens if my immune system starts to go down? Let's keep on talking, because we have to get to the root of this mystery, because there's where we're going to find the answers to this disease. My dear friends, I'm Dr. Rodrigo Rodriguez, and you're listening to me through the activities of Truth Be Told Radio Network. And we broadcast this program every Friday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we rerun the same program every Saturday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you can choose to sit with me every Friday night, or what about Saturday mornings with a cup of coffee? Nevertheless, I would love you to listen to these programs. I would love you to share them with anybody else. And if you listen any part that you liked, all you have to do is share it with somebody else just by going to Spotify. And Spotify, you search for Truth Be Told Radio Network. And the same way, we can connect through the social media of your choice, with Twitter, with Instagram, with Facebook, and also, I have to tell you that you have a lot of programs and broadcasts through Facebook. So in this time of time and age, where we can communicate with so many forms that to be honest, I many times don't even understand. Well, the fact is that you can listen to whatever is your area of interest with somebody else, and if you're like me, you will probably ask one of your children or a coworker to help you out with all this technology that sometimes I feel a little bit overwhelming. Nevertheless, I find it fantastic because it has produced a sort of communication channel that we didn't have before. So we can choose what we want to get information about. We can choose what time. We can choose where we begin, where we stop, and so forth. And it has been very useful in gathering information. I think social media is like everything else. If you learn to have good choices, you're going to do very well. The opposite is like junk food. If your food choices are very poor, you're not going to be healthier, you're going to have problems. Same with all this information. So bring your children together, sit with your family together, listen to some of these programs, ask questions. You can ask them through any of the social media I have mentioned. You can go to Facebook, to any one of these choices, and get back to me. Ask a question. Give me your comments. Tell me what you like, what you dislike. And I'd be very happy to address the issue and try to give you my point of view. which not necessarily is the truth, but I think it's material for thought. So if we start thinking of all these things, we are beginning to go in the right direction, because the more we think of it, the more or the closer we are to making healthy choices. Because now we think this might be good for me, this might be bad for me. So when we start doing all that, then we begin to make the changes we have to make. Because make no mistake, medicine as we know it is not going to be your savior. We have to work ourselves with responsibility, education, and knowledge to help to be healthier. And even if we go to the doctor, even if we take a drug, even if we have radiotherapy, even if we're going to have surgery, there's lots of things I can do to help that will shorten the extension of my illness, that are going to shorten the problems I'm going to have, but they're going to make my route shorter and more successful. Just if I start pitching in doing what I think I can do to help. And if you're healthy, God bless you, keep that health, because it's a treasure. And God has given us a lot of tools to remain healthy and bypass all degenerative disease. And we're talking today about chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, the UP flu, whatever you want to call it, which is this drop in immunity that will allow just microbial life that normally lives with us to take over and to start producing a lot of symptoms. That's why people get achy, that's why people get all these problems, because it's just like an infection. You have an infectious process. Now, we have grown to believe that when we have an infection, we take an antibiotic and it's gone. Well, in this case, no, because we're talking about a virus. We're talking about Epstein-Barr virus, which is very similar to the mono virus. And unfortunately, antibiotics don't do any good. They're going to do more harm. Now, what do you have to do? Well, you have to work, of course, on the virus, but you have to work, most importantly, on your immunity. And many people tell me, doctor, if I have Epstein-Barr activity, if I have this virus working on my body, why don't I just do something to wipe it out? And yes, there are things that can help, like ultraviolet radiation of the blood, hyperbaric oxygen, things that we do routinely at BioCare, and I'm going to talk about that later on. But that's not enough. And I tell people, this is like if you have a room filled with mold, and you say, oh my God, there's a lot of mold in this room. And you go and wipe it out and leave it clean and repaint it, you name it. It's going to look beautiful. Yes, but you never ask yourself, why did the room get the mold in the first place? Because if I don't change that, the mold is going to come right back. If the room is dark, humid, doesn't have any ventilation, guess what? It develops mold. And no matter how many times you kill the mold is going to come right back. So what you have to do? You have to do the two things. You have to clear the mold, but you have to open up a window. You have to let fresh air come in. You have to change the temperature of that room. If there's a leakage or anything like that that provides with humidity, you have to stop it. So as soon as the room is airy and sunny and without any humidity, the mold is going to be defeated. And then you clean whatever is there, but it's not going to come back. The mold doesn't like the environment of that room anymore. And that's what we have to do, not just with this, with every infection, with every disease. We have to change the environment of our body. We have to enhance our immunity. We have to produce substances that are going to beat inflammation. We have to make all these changes because then this virus or any other are not going to like that body. So they'll go somewhere else. They'll do something somewhere else. They're not going to be attacking us, and they're not going to be just growing like crazy. And when these people begin to have the symptoms of fatigue and aches and problems, the problem came from way behind. These people, these kids, were probably born by C-section, which defeats from the beginning a healthy intestinal flora. They probably were not breastfed. You know, mother's milk will enhance the good bacteria in the gut and will block the bad bacteria. So, if you were born by a C-section and your mother didn't give you any milk, you already have a handicap. And then, which is very frequent, people were treated with a lot of antibiotics for one reason or another. Because they got a little bit of flu, because they had a little bit of mucus, because they had a little bit of sore throat, because they have this and this. I have fought so many times with people who say, why are you giving antibiotics? Oh, because he has flu. Well, antibiotics, again, don't kill viruses. What did your grandmother did with you? What your mother did with you when you had a flu? They got you in a room, no cold, exposure, chicken soup, lots of fluids, and rest. And sure enough, 2 days later, you're going to be healthier. You're going to be back. But if they give you antibiotics, they block the immune system. So the infections keep coming back because we're not working on the immune system. And you know what? Every time you take an antibiotic, you're killing part of your intestinal flora, which is essential for what? For immunity. We're talking that your immune system is bad. For the production of hormones that help the brain to work well. We're talking about mental fogginess. We're talking about lack of sleep. Follow me? And that bacterial activity, that microbial activity will produce reactions in the body, and that's the aches and pains that we get when we get what? The flu. You say, I think I'm going to get the flu. I have teary eyes. I don't feel good. I move and I have all these aches and pains. Those are reactions to the infectious process. They're normal. But what if the infection goes on and on and on for weeks and months or years, as with these people? Well, what's going to happen is the symptoms get worse, the immunity goes further down, the damage to the intestinal flora is enhanced, but by what the doctors are giving you, which is antibiotics. So you're going to be down a spiral that's going to take you to more and more suffering, to the point where you will not be able to function or work anymore. So you have to clean everything up from the beginning. It's like that room. I have to open the window. I have to let fresh air come in. I have to let things function. So I'm going to work on your immunity. I'm going to work on all these hormones that intestinal flora produce. I have to rebuild all this. If I don't, that infection will never leave your body. So this is so important. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do with you if you come to BioCare. Friends, we're talking about a real serious problem that affects probably the best of our people. Our young people, our young professional people, when they are at their prime, when they are going up in the scale of professional life, when they're beginning to make more money, when they're beginning to make the investments of a lifetime, when they beginning to plan a big house and a nice place to live, a vacation option, the car of their dreams, etc. And all of a sudden, these people that are going up and up and up, as they call yuppies, the young, upward professional people, they all of a sudden one day cannot work anymore. And they have this fatigue, this fogginess, this loss of interest, this lack of everything. And they start losing weight and they feel miserable and they don't enjoy anything anymore. They don't enjoy food, they don't enjoy company, they don't enjoy anything. Life is almost virtually over for these people. I have seen people who are 35 years old that spend 22, 23 hours a day in bed. Eyes shut, lights out. It's not that they're watching TV, it's not that they're playing games on the computer. It's that they just are virtually gone. And you know what's the worst? They're not sleeping. They're not sleeping because they cannot concile sleep. So they're always sleepy, yet they cannot go to sleep. They're always tired, yet they cannot, when they rest, they don't recoup. So it's very sad. It's very, very sad. And I tell you that for many years, we have welcomed these people, we have had them at BioCare. I think I can tell you, I mean, very proudly, that we're one of the first and most important centers for the management of this problem since the 1980s. And we get fantastic results. Because at BioCare, we understand that the problem is not the microbial activity, but it is the lack of performance of many areas of the body that have been damaged once again by our lifestyle. And sad to say, in many of those circumstances, it has been medicine itself that has helped to produce the problem. Because chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, if you open a book before 1950s, and many of us were alive in the 1950s, we were already here. So I'm not talking about 200 years ago. Just the age of your father's marriage or something like that. It is that time where we didn't know what it was. And then all of a sudden we started getting all these people with all these symptoms, and then we jumped to the easy conclusion that it's all in your mind, what you need is a vacation, etc. But we started looking at the whole thing, then we said, I have to change the conditions of that body. So at BioCare, we're going to have to, believe it or not, you have to begin with hydration. These people don't eat, don't drink. You have to start with intravenous feeding. They cannot eat everything they take, they react to it. They also have all this universal reaction, and they think they're allergic to it. No, it's that their bodies cannot handle it. So we have to start rebuilding that. We have to cleanse the body. The same way we're talking about that room with mold, where you just wipe it out. Well, that's what you have to do. Cleanse the body, cleanse the intestinal tract, use enemas, use anti-inflammatory enemas to cleanse the bowel and let it ready to be implanted by new bacteria. We have high concentrations of very useful bacterial types that will replenish your bacterial activity. And by doing that, I'm going to help in a lot of areas. I'm going to be able to produce again serotonin so my brain can work. People don't take into consideration that serotonin, which is the hormone of happiness and feeling well, which is very important for the brain, is made in the gut by bacteria. 95% of serotonin is made in the gut. So an unhappy tummy means an unhappy brain. We cannot have a good brain function if we have a problem with the tummy. So we do the enemas, we do the implantation, we do the diet, the type of food that's going to feed these bacteria so they can grow. I will tell people that intestinal flora are bacteria, and bacteria are vegetable cells. So if you neglect a bacterial population, you're going to have all sorts of weeds and wrong things. Look at your garden. If you stop taking care of it, it's going to be a ruin. And if you're going to plant sod, if you want to put a nice flower bed, you have to use fertilizers, you have to water it, you have to feed these plants. Same here. You have to feed your intestinal bacteria so they can produce the type of bacteria that you want. You don't want weeds, you want flowers. And by doing that, it's very important. Then you have to kill this overpopulation of bacteria. And we do a special form of hyperthermia. We have been doing that for probably a long time, where you use ceramic tiles that are connected. In other words, you don't put it in an oven and then you lay on it. These are specific ceramic tiles that are connected electrically so you can regulate the heat. The advantage is that ceramic tiles against the skin will not burn and will transfer lots of heat. And then we cover you, and then we watch your temperature, we follow you up. At the same time, we're going to be dripping you with nutritional solutions and put you with constant oxygen flow. So you're going to have a high oxygen, high nutritional, and heat at the same time. That's probably what they used to do in the 1800s. They would cover you to produce some sort of a feverish condition and give you lots of waters and chicken soup. Chicken soup works. You just need high-quality chicken. What's a high-quality chicken? A hen that runs around and eats worms and stones and everything. Not the one that they bring you from a factory. Not just a hen, a common hen. That's what they used to do. And because it's going to be loaded with nutrients. The other thing, they cook the chicken with bones and everything. Today, you buy skinned and boned chicken. That's not going to be healthy. You need the bones, and they have to simmer for a long time if you want the nutrients of the bones to be in that broth. If you go to Facebook or if you go to BioCare, you can request how to make chicken soup, because it's just as good as your grandmother told you. You just have to learn how to do it. So we're doing a lot of things at the same time. I was telling about that room. Open the window, clean the place, get sunlight, get fresh air, etc. We're doing that. We're working on your intestinal flora. We're working on your immune system. We're working in your brain. We're working on clearing out the infectious processes through biological means. So we're not going to kill your bacteria at the same time as it happens with antibiotics, because we need those bacteria. And as we progress, people start noticing changes. They start feeling that a lot of the aches and pains are beginning to go. Headaches, which are very constant, will diminish its intensity first, their frequency later, and at the end, they should be completely gone. And you are going to have a better, clear, focused mind again. It's like drawing a curtain. All of a sudden, you start turning around and see that the world is still there for you, that you can go back to it. But at the same time, you have to learn that you have to start changing your lifestyle. You have to help your body in order to be healthy. And that if you were born by C-section and were not breastfed, well, you have to intensify some of your activities. You're not lost. This is not too late because you didn't have that. No, it's just that you have to work harder. Because most people with this problem has that background. And people that were given antibiotics. You know, we used to give antibiotics for a little bit of flu, for a little bit of fever, then for pimples, then for this, for that. The problem is that people grew taking antibiotics forever. As adolescents, as the children, and that ruined the intestinal tract. They're being a little bit more cautious right now, but not enough for my taste. It could be a lot better. So think of that when you're raising your children. So I would advise you to get more and more information. But if you know of anybody that has chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia or Jupi-flu, tell them to call me. Give them my social media connections. Give them my toll-free number. I'll be very happy to talk to them because I know we can definitely help them. We'll be with you next week.